What's up, YouTube? George's Silver Hunter back with part 5 of the deeper dive or hunt of that large coin collection or silver dump or silver purchase that I made a couple of weeks ago. We've got a ton of nickels to get through, so let's jump right into it. So what I have laid out here, as I was opening, part 1 of this video, really at the end of the day, I went ahead and just to get a count of all of my silver nickels, I went ahead and unwrapped all those and threw them in a styrofoam container. I have not hunted these yet, so I know there's like a 1943/2 variety. There's some double dyes, there's some double dye reverses. There's all kinds of cool stuff that can be found in here, and we're going to sort through these and see if we can find anything fun. I did get 2 little styrofoam containers full of buffalo nickels. One is full date or mostly full date. And then we have a bunch of dateless that we'll be going through as well. And I'll bring you in if we find anything really special. And lastly, we have all of these rolls of nickels from 1938 and 9. These will be great to hunt for that double die reverse. Normally you get like 1 of these per box or 2 of these per box of nickels you hunt. I've got 37 sitting here. That'll be fun to look through. And then we start at 1940 and work our way all the way up to 1964. And we even have one roll that's got some 68s and 69s. There's all kinds of interesting varieties we can hunt in nickels. And what I'm going to do differently in this video than I've done in some of the other ones is I'm literally just going to open one roll at a time as we go. So you may see some of these things not completely wrapped. But we're going to dig into these things and hopefully we find something interesting or maybe at least a few stunners that can replace some nickels in my album. So what I'm going to do actually is start with the Buffaloes because they're the oldest dated nickels that we're going to have. So we'll dive into those first. We'll move on to the 38s and 39s, up to the 41s where we'll take a break and go through. Oop, I just broke my little styrofoam container. We'll take a break and go through all these war nickels. And then we'll continue on from 46 up through whatever I have here at the end. And I'll be bringing you guys in on any error, any variety, any stunner, just something that looks amazing, maybe something with full steps if we get lucky and find something like that. So we're going to jump right into these nickels. So first up is this stack of dateless buffaloes. I'm going to go through each one and make sure that they are in fact dateless. And I will be looking at the reverses to see if we have any mint marks. And probably in another video, I may nick-a-date these just to see if we can pull a date off of them because I do have a buffalo nickel book that I'm trying to fill. And at the end of the day, I don't care if they're in pristine condition. I'm just trying to get all the years and mint marks. So let me do that real quick and I'll bring you right back in. So we're done sorting those dateless buffaloes and we actually found a couple of partial dates. Let's see if I can make this a little easier to see here. It's very light, but you can see we have a full date, 1918 Indian head nickel from Philadelphia. Actually, still a lot of really good detail in this coin for it being a 1918. This one, it looks like maybe a 25 or a 23. I would guess maybe a 25, but it's got partial date on it. It too is a Philly. And we're gonna throw these into the dated pile. And this guy as well as a 25. A little slicker than the other ones. Also from Philly. So those are 3 that are going to graduate up to the dated bucket. What we were left with here was $2 plus, I think that was 6, so $2.30 full of Philadelphia dateless buffaloes, meaning, and I'll zoom in here, meaning there's no date or there's no mint mark. It shows up under the 5 cents, and I'm going to show you that here in a second. And where that date is supposed to be, oh, well, this one you can kind of see through the camera. Look at that. That's actually a 25, so I stand corrected. Let us look at a different one. So again, no mint mark. And that, where the date is supposed to be, is just worn enough that you can't really read a date. And I had a few where it looked like you might be able to tell out 1 digit, but that wasn't enough to tell what year it was. We did also get one. I believe this is a variety one, 1913. You'll notice on newer years, there's that line where the mound is that the buffalo is standing on and 5 cents is underneath it. And the 1913 Type 1, there's no line. It's just a big mound that 5 cents is written into. That's a guess. I could be wrong. That line could just have been worn away. That's a possibility. I could nick-a-date this to find out, but I believe this is a 1913. All right, so we did also end up with 4 D mint mark, and I'll zoom way in here with my camera and see if we can see it. We had 4 D mint mark coins, so these will be interesting to nick-a-date to see what years we got. And I did end up with 1 clearly S mint mark. No date. And we had 1 that I can see a partial mint mark, but I couldn't tell if that was a D or an S. If I had to guess, I would say it's a D. But a little nick-a-date will clean that right up as well. So we're going to push those to the side. Nothing super fancy there. Finding that 1918 was kind of a big deal. But within the dateless, the only thing that might be interesting so far is if I'm right about this being a 1913 Type 1. In G4 condition, these, according to Redbook, can go as high as, I think it was, what did it say? Like $12. I don't think anybody's paying that these days. But this stops being like a 20 or 30 cent nickel, right? If you nick-a-date them, it's great for your books and you as a collector so you know what years you have, but it does ruin the value of the nickel. So now we're going to move on to our dated buffaloes. All right, so all the dated buffaloes have been sorted. We did not get a huge variety, but we did get a couple of stunners in here. Let me run through the dates very quickly. Again, I'm going to have to zoom in here. So we did have 2 1918s. I believe they were both fillies. We did get a 1919, if I'm reading that right. So we got a couple of early years. We have a 20, 21. I believe that one was a 23. It looks like a 23. It could be a 25. I'm going to call it a 23 for now. We did end up with 5 or 6 25s. All of them were pretty worn, partial date. Same with the 27s here. I've seen much worse than these, so I'm pretty happy with them. We did get a couple of 29 Phillies, and we did get a 29 Denver. Again, those are all partial dates. When we get down here into the 30s, though, we start getting into some full date stuff. We got, I don't know what that is, 3 1934 Phillies. We got a couple of 1935s, and some of these look really, really good. You get some of them, we have a little bit of partial horn on these on the back, but really, really good dates. Lots of detail left on these guys. So let's look at that last one real quick. 1935. So a couple of nice 1935s. And where the real stunner is, and we've got in the 30, it's a 35 and a 37. I think this is the best one. I think I left it on top. This 1936, all Phillies, but this guy is just gorgeous. And this one underneath, I think, looks just as nice. That is an absolutely gorgeous 1936 Buffalo nickel. I mean, they just keep going. They're not all this nice, but in general, they all look pretty darn good. All right, moving on. I think we probably got about 10 or 15 of those, 10 or 12 of those. 1937, again, all Phillies. This is probably the next nicest one, or maybe the nicest one. 1937, and you can still see that full horn on there. Again, a Philly, but an absolutely gorgeous Buffalo nickel. And we got, I think, about 5 or 6 of those. One of them's all chewed up. You can see on the bottom. Let's see here. We also got a 1938. You can see a little bit of horn on that guy, and that is a Denver. We did get a 36 San Francisco. I think that one still looks pretty darn good. 36 San Francisco. And that kind of rounds it out for the Buffaloes. So anyway, I'll put in the lower right-hand corner how much we got. It's probably about $2 maybe worth of dated Buffaloes. So really happy with those. A couple of those, they've got to be in the extra fine or higher category. Some of those just look really, really nice. So anyway, that's enough of the Buffaloes. So we're going to move on to the Jefferson nickels. So we're going to start with sorting out the war nickels before we get to just the plain old Jeffersons, because I have a feeling those are going to go pretty fast. So we finished sorting the war nickels, and what we ended up, it's kind of wonky rows I did here. These are all the 1942 Phillies. These, we actually ended up with a little over $2 worth of the 1943 Phillies. We had how many? I think 17 of the 1944 Phillies, and we had 27 of the 1945 Phillies. And I wanted to point, I pulled one because it's absolutely gorgeous, and it could just be the way that it toned, but this is a beautiful war nickel. The detail on this thing. It's absolutely beautiful. Probably the nicest war nickel in the whole batch. I got a couple of decent ones, none that look that good. When we move into the Denvers, we did get 2 44 Denvers and 2 45 Denvers, and we got, I think this was like 7 or 8 43 San Franciscos, and 1 44 San Francisco and 1 45 San Francisco. So I'm going to run through these now and see if I find any errors or varieties. I'm not hopeful. You know, the big one, there's a double I variant, I think, on the 43. I know there's a 43 over 42 that can be quite valuable. And I know there's a couple other DDOs and DDRs, but I'm going to have to refer to PCGS, and I'll call them out if I find any of them. This did end up being 116 individual coins, and I think it came out to like $5.80 face value. So a decent amount of silver right here, and war nickels are 35% silver. So this is pretty cool, pretty good stuff. It ends up being almost, I think, 3 full rolls of nickels. So I started with our 1942 Ps, and there is an RPM. Let me get this set up under here. There is an RPM for the 1942 P, and I think I found one. You can see here the shape of the P that's up here. It comes right on down along this end right here. So I think that may qualify as an RPM. I'll check to see if maybe there was a DDR as well, but that just kind of jumped out at me as something interesting. So that wraps up the war nickels. I'm going to do just a really quick recap. We did have this one 1942 Philly that was an RPM, at least according to Variety Vista. It's not the same one that PCGS is showing. And the only value they have is that it's a $400 coin in like MS63 or MS65 or something like that. This coin is obviously nowhere near that grade. So I don't know. I'm going to have to do some research, look around on eBay, see what this is worth. But as it stands right now, I'm not really sure. Probably worth more than a standard war nickel. I wanted to also just show you, I did find a couple of really nice high detail war nickels as we went through. This was that 45P I showed earlier. And we found a whole bunch of really nice 1943 Phillies. I was really hopeful that we were going to find a 43 over 2, but we just didn't get there. So anyway, I think we're going to put these war nickels away and move on to the standard nickels. So now that we've wrapped up our Buffaloes and our war nickels, I'm going to move on to all of these individually rolled nickels that typically when you watch a coin roll hunter hunt a box of nickels, most of these rolls would be considered fines because we have from 1938 all the way up through 64. Typically, coin roll hunters are looking for those 30s, 40s, and 50s nickels. So I'm going to go through these roll at a time looking for any kind of error or variety. I have a link in my description down below that has the listing of everything that we'll be looking for, but just to rattle off a few, things like the 1938D, the 1939S, the 1938S. Those are all key dates. I mean, there's more, but that's just a couple. The semi-key dates, we'll be looking for like the 1950 and the 1955. And then there's a whole bunch of varieties throughout the 1938 all the way to the 1964D. There are probably 24 over mint marks and repunch mint marks. There's about a dozen or so double dies. So if you want to know everything I'm looking for, really head down below, click on that link down in the description. It will take you to a Google Doc and show you everything I'm looking for. But we're going to start here with the 1938s and 39s, which I can tell you right now there is a DDO and there is a DDR for the 38s and 39s. And if we happen to find a D or an S, a 1938 D or S, those are key dates, and the 1939 D is also a key date. So is the 1939 S. Look at that, I can't read. Anyway, we're going to jump right into these, and I will bring in if we find anything significant. Well, that was a little disappointing. I've already checked them all. None had that Monticello or Monticello DDR that everyone looks for in the 38 and 39, and they were all, in fact, Philadelphias. So nothing from a find outside of the fact that I've got a roll of 1938-39 Philly nickels, which are pretty hard to come by. And there they are. So we're going to move on to the next roll that looks like it's probably going to be the 1940s. I got a couple of rolls of 1940. So far, these nickels have been a bust. I did want to bring you in here just to kind of give you a little bit of an update, but we've been through the 38s all the way through I've been through one roll of 48s, and it's overwhelmingly been Philadelphia coins. But the few Denvers we've had, I've checked them all for repunch mint marks, and we haven't had them. No DDOs or DDRs along the way, but I wanted to stop here because the 1948S and the 1951S are key dates, and this is a roll that we're hoping to find a few S mint marks. I'm not hopeful because, like I said, the overwhelming majority of the previous rolls have been Philadelphia, and that's likely what we're going to find here. But it's kind of an exciting roll to open. So like most of our rolls, we did have mostly Philly. We had a few Denvers, but as I went through them, I just checked mint marks, so I don't even know what we have here, but surprise, surprise, we do have an S. Let's see if we have the 48 or the 51. Oh, we have a 1940S semi-key date. Very nice. First real find of the bunch. So we had a blue wrapper that wasn't completely full, and it was unmarked, and I dumped them out. And surprise, surprise, it was an entire roll of 1955s. And the 1955 Philly is a key date, or is it a semi-key date? It is a semi-key date. Turns out most of my rolls have been Philly. However, this entire roll was 55 Denvers. Until I came across this one coin that had no mint mark. And wouldn't you know it, when we flipped it over, it was a 1956. So the only Philly in that entire roll of 1955s was a 1956. And that was a little disappointing. So we have finished going through all of these nickels. I've re-rolled them all, or re-wrapped them all. And I know a lot of the 60s I'm going to take back to the bank. I'll probably hang on to the 38s, 39s, the 40s through probably the late 50s. And at some point, either, upgrade some stuff in my book or possibly sell them off. Or, I may just end up taking them back to the bank. I mean, this is, 2 years worth of 40s and 50s finds in nickel boxes, quite frankly. None of them were full steps. None of them were super duper nice. There were some that were nicer than others, good detail on the front. But excuse me, I did actually look for full steps as I went through these as well and didn't find a single nickel that had full steps. We did have one pretty decent find. It was a semi-key date. It was this 1948S. It's in decent shape. That mint mark's a little hard to see. Let me zoom way in here for you. But you can see that is a 48S semi-key date. So this we'll hang on to. Like I said, the rest will end up going back to the bank. And I was thinking I was going to get into kind of a bigger wrap-up, but then I remembered, and I'm just putting them up here, we did have a roll, or a partial roll, full of various V-nickels. So we're going to go through these really quickly, and we'll kind of look at grades and what these things might be worth. If I recall, I had a bunch that were the same year, and then I had a few that were of lesser quality that we had some various years. So I'll look through these and bring you guys in if we find anything really interesting. Otherwise, I'll just do a quick recap of this, and then we'll close out the video. So the last thing I want to cover before we move into the wrap-up were all of these V-nickels. And I got really excited because one of the rolls was, or a good section of them were, let me zoom in here, some just absolutely gorgeous 1883. I mean, this is AU. This one's probably truly AU, maybe even into mint state. 1883 V-nickel. Now, if you guys don't know V-nickels very well, and I learned this myself after having seen these, the 1883 had a Type 1 and a Type 2. And the Type 1 says E pluribus unum down here on the bottom, and the Type 2 says cents. And while this is a gorgeous nickel, and let me just pull another one just to show you what I'm talking about here. So this one's dirty, right? But same level of detail, right? Just the hair detail is fantastic. I've got grunge on the back, but you can make out the corn stalks. I mean, all of these things are definitely in that either really high XF and into AU state. So you would think this would be worth a small fortune. So I'm going to bring you over here to Redbook and show you where we land. And keep in mind, it's Redbook, so all this is taken with a grain of salt. And you'll see here's our variety 1 without cents. Here's our variety 2 with cents. So 1883 without cents. If we say AU, it is a $20 nickel. So that's not, you can't get too upset about that, right? However, if this was the 1883 with cents, we are talking about a $120 nickel. And I've got, I don't know, 10 or 12 of them. Let's see here. How many do I have? 4, 8, 12, 13. I have 13 of those that, again, varying degrees of dirtiness, but all with tremendously good detail. So that was a little disappointing. I thought that might have been a huge windfall for the hunt. But even if they're each worth $15 to $20, if I could squeeze that out of them, that would be great. I will say I've looked on eBay, and it's really closer to $8 to $12 is what people are typically getting for these in this condition. Outside of that, we had a bunch that I would say are in that kind of G4 to G6 range. We had a 1900 V-nickel, a little slick. We had a 1903, and you'll see these all have cents on the back. We have a 1911, see that cents down there on the bottom. And we had two 1912s. I think this is the nicer of the two. I'll show you this one. We also ended up with, and these are actually a little bit more valuable, and I'll take you back over to Redbook. This is an 1888, I believe. Super slick. 1888. This would be fair at best. The back is completely slick. But remember that. We have an 1888. We have, I believe this was an 1894, if I recall. Yeah, I'll put that one under the scope, but I believe it was an 1894. It's tough to see it under the camera. And we had an 1895. So bringing Redbook back over here, we had an 1888. Oops, let's go back. Remember, that one was super, super slick. But an 1888, even in G4, would be worth like $30. If I have that right, 1888. It'd be worth $30. That's the one I have is not in G4. It is fair at best, and maybe even less than that, because it is completely slick on the back. We had an 1894 and an 1895. And here we are, if we can just say good for those two, which I think they would be closer to fair. The 1894 is a $20 at a G4 and $6 at a G4. So you can imagine a little less for something in about good condition. So those are kind of pretty cool finds. They're not bad finds at all. I really wish this coin had been in much better shape, and I wish any one of these had the word cents on the back. This would have been the find of the nickels. So anyway, with that, I'm going to move over to a quick wrap-up, and we'll close out the video. So to bring this video to a close, here's all the cool nickels we looked through. We did go through a ton of standard nickels from 1938 all the way to 1964. There were actually some later than 64, but I did not look at those. Out of all of that hunting, all of that scoping, we found one semi-key date nickel. It was a 1948 S. So that was an awful lot of nickels to look at to find this one semi-key date. I'm kind of unsure what to do with all these. I know the 1964s and probably 63s, 62s. I'm just going to take them to the bank and the roll because I don't need them. But I know a lot of coin roll hunters are really hunting for these early 40s and 50s nickels. So you guys let me know what to do with those in the comments down below because, I mean, I'm happy taking them back to the bank because I certainly don't need rolls and rolls of 40s and 50s nickels. But if there's a way to either offload them, sell them, I just don't know. What should I do with them? Should I try to make a book out of them and maybe one of you guys want to buy them? I don't know. Anyway, from there, we moved into the buffaloes, and I got 2 sets of buffaloes. We got a bunch of dateless, and I did go ahead and nicodate 1 or 2 just for fun, and the second one I nickodated, it's real hard to see, ended up being a 1917, and I nicodated the back to get a mint mark off of it, and it didn't have one, so I may nicodate all these. I'm not sure. We'll see, but I got a bunch of dateless. Over here, I have a bunch of dated, right? And I pulled a couple that we reviewed earlier because they're just stunning, right? Here, let me zoom in just a little bit. We got some stunners for some buffaloes, mostly in the 30s, the 35, 6, 7 years. We got some great nickels. Let me pull up one more here. Just beautiful, beautiful buffalo nickels. So we'll definitely hang on to all of our dated ones. Nothing super valuable in there. You know, I checked them for errors, varieties. Nothing super valuable. I mean, a few of those might be worth $1 or $2. I can't recall. But nothing, you know, nothing huge. Nothing $20, $30, $40. Nothing like that. From there, we got into our war nickels. We had a whole bunch of war nickels. It was 115 or 116 war nickels. I did pull a couple that actually turned out to be pretty decent in quality. War nickels always look a little beaten and worn, but these were kind of the nicer ones in the batch. And I did find one repunch mint mark, and it's tough to see with my camera. It was one I was able to match on Variety Vista, so I did pull that. I'll probably flip that up and just hang on to it. And last but not least, you know, we had this really nice roll of these V-nickels. And, you know, as I said, I think they're great. Right now, according to Redbook, many of these would go for about $20 if graded. I'm sure it's about half to 2/3 of that selling it in private sale, ungraded. But we've got some beautiful 1883 V-nickels. I wish they were the Type 2, though, because in XF to AU, these would be $100 coins, and there's a bunch of them. Lastly, we did get some more run-of-the-mills. These guys are worth $2 to $3 a piece. Again, that's Redbook value. And we had some hard-to-find dates, but unfortunately, they're in such bad condition that, you know, this 88's probably worthless. I think this guy here, this was the 1894. You know, I think this is probably like a $10 nickel, even in its sorry shape, just because it's such a hard nickel to find. And then this 1895, it falls into the same boat. I don't believe it was as valuable as the 1894, but it was a harder to find year. These are things I'll probably just hang on to, though, just because I don't have a lot of V-nickels. I may be looking to sell some of the other ones. I'll probably hang on to the one super nice one, but probably offload the rest of them. So anyway, this was the nickels from that huge collection that I bought. And the last thing I have, and it may take me some time to get to, there were some little baggies full of tokens and odds and ends and foreign coins, and I'll do a separate video on those. But I was able to pick up some coins from the bank today, so I'm going to get into some coin roll hunting videos because it's been now about 2 weeks since I've posted one. Anyway, I hope you guys enjoyed this video. I hope you either learned a few things or at least enjoyed watching me play with silver, because I had a blast. If you like this video, please do go on down below and click on that like button. Click that thumbs up. Let me know you enjoyed it. Click on that subscribe button, then click on that little bell and select all so you get notified each time I release a new video. And I hope you have fun. I know I have fun making these videos, and I hope you like them too. Always happy to get feedback in the comments down below. You guys, take care, have fun, and I look forward to seeing you in the next one.